In 1995, Irish violinist Fionnuala Sherry and Norwegian composer and pianist Rolf Loveland of the duo Sikkert turned heads when they won the Eurovision Song Contest with a song that was almost entirely instrumental. In fact, it's the song you're listening to right now. The release of their first album quickly followed, and it went platinum in Loveland's home country of Norway as well as here in Korea. Well, they are back here after a 3-year hiatus for a concert under the theme of Winter Poem. Thank you very much for joining us in the studio this morning.
Great to be here.
So, how did you two meet? That's the first thing I want to know.
We actually met in Ireland in 94, I think it was. I was actually working in an orchestra at the time, and the Eurovision Song Contest was being held in Ireland, so I was performing on that TV show, and Rolf was the Norwegian composer. So we were introduced to each other because everybody on that competition, it's a week of partying and rehearsing and whatever. So we were introduced, and I was looking for material for a solo album. I was about to leave the orchestra, so Rolf introduced me to some pieces, and the very first song that he gave me to try was Nocturne, which he had written the previous year while he was in Ireland. So it was like an instant feeling for me, okay, I want to work with this man. And I dropped everything and we just began the process.
Well, I mean, it's one thing to work with Rolf, but another thing entirely to actually form a duo together, right? That's a big commitment.
It was, but it's still actually how we are, in the sense that we just started working together because it felt right, but we didn't have any plan. We didn't have any idea that we were going to even create a record or go out touring. We hadn't even formed the name Sikkert or no idea, except that I just started flying over to Norway, and we just started grafting out the process of learning how to work together, rehearsing, trying new demos, and eventually a body of work came together, which became really our first album. And in fact, which is probably nice for other musicians to hear, I think 3 or 4 record companies turned us down when we eventually decided we wanted to record. It wasn't like suddenly a door opened and off you go. I mean, we really had to do some convincing. And I think we only were released really in Norway originally by Polygram, because the secretary of the MD heard some of our demos, and she kept going in and saying to the guy, "What, I really like this music." So, we're kind of grateful to her, because we probably would have ended up on the bottom of his pile of wannabe CDs. So,
well, they could have ended somewhere else. But Rolf, what were your feelings when you first met Fionnuala and shared your music with her?
You were enraptured.
Well, yes. To be honest, I felt like I found the voice of my music, her voice being the violin, because I had written a lot of music, and it was, I did it for the joy of writing it, for my own needs, and it expressed my feelings, but I didn't really have a plan to release it or produce it. But it all came together in a way when I met Fionnuala, because her violin added that missing element. And I think that's what we felt, the two of us, that, that we needed each other. And that was a very good starting point for creating something that was, it gave us a strong incentive to do this.
Why Sikkert?
We actually only formed the name just before we entered the Eurovision Song Contest, which was almost a year later. And I think, knowing that we were going to be an instrumental ensemble, that we wanted something that would be a little bit descriptive of what we were about. And I think everybody in the entire world can relate to a garden, the symbolism of a garden, and the organicness of it, and the beauty, and the changing, and the seasons, and everything to do with that. And the idea of the secret was just to make it a special place for people. And in a way, that's what music can do as well. It can bring you into that little special place. So it was just a name that came together for us, and we just felt it kind of explained a little bit of what we're about.
Yeah, and I think listening to your music makes you feel like you're in a secret garden as well.
Well, thank you.
So, talking about the Eurovision Song Contest, why did you want to enter that?
I think it had to do with a little bit of the history of what we had been doing. Like Vanilla was saying, she was in the orchestra and they had hosted a series of international finals. You know, the background of the Eurovision is that there's a national winner for each of the European countries. Then they come together in an international final. I had done a few of those before, so I was involved with the Norwegian television company who's hosting this. And when we were asked, we actually really thought carefully through this because it felt like, since it wasn't typical Eurovision, because it is a song contest, you know,
right.
it felt like jeopardizing almost a year of work, of investing and forming, our very fragile feelings about what this was to become, It was so personal, it was so emotional for us. So when we were actually approached to do the Eurovision, we hesitated, and even turned it down for a while. But we did our list of pros and cons and found out that sometimes, something can be right even if it doesn't seem like the obvious thing to do. And of course that turned out to be right for us, and it was a great starting point and a platform for us to release the first record.
And that had not been done before, right?
No, and actually when Rolf says we were approached to do the Eurovision to represent Norway, we also had to go through, it wasn't that we just stepped into the final, we actually had to get the Norwegian people to vote for us.
Right.
And we had to go through a few rounds, and actually the very first time we appeared on TV, I think we only barely got through, and then in the final we were chosen to meet Norway, to represent Norway. So that actually then gave us a very good feeling going into the actual European final, because we felt we had, a really strong country now behind us, and that really wanted us to do this. So.
With an almost entirely instrumental piece.
It was very different and very unexpected, so it was a chance.
So you entered, but you didn't really expect to win, did you?
We couldn't expect to win because it was so different. But I think through the week of rehearsing and meeting the other countries and meeting the media, and we had a certain confidence that at least we would be able to make a statement musically, and that's really why we went in. To do something that exposed who we were, and sometimes if you do it in a context where expectations are not really there, it's a positive thing. So that was our goal. But we got this confidence because the response was huge, even before the final day of this. So when we won on the last day of the week, the Saturday, it wasn't like totally unexpected. But going in a week before, it was.
Okay.